Alrighty, folks. It is 3:25. It is the 25th here uh of March. Welcome to Twitchline, and it is day 10 of lockdown when it comes to being stuck at home, and people are already getting antsy, as it seems that people are um, trying to debate whether or not business is more important than lives. That'll be our first topic today, but as always, joining me as my co-commentator, is Mr. Acorn, also known as Tim. How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, man. Just another gloomy day in quarantine. So we are finding ways to entertain ourselves. It's actually not that bad. And we put enough food in the fridge to last us a while. So working our way through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like everybody was really, really worried about whether or not they were ever going to be able to go out. So you had the empty shelves and the hoarding, which happened the first few days. I think people at the grocery stores have gotten a little bit normalized with regards to what is going on. But I was there today, and still no paper products. That seems to be the
Yeah, that
only
stuff
thing.
goes pretty quick. I actually saw a post on r/Nova. This is just Northern Virginia area, which is where I live,
Hmm.
and Hoyo. But someone posted that they had two pallets of Purell or something at a particular grocery store that had just come in, and uh, it turned into a big mess. The whole thread turned into a big mess with people claiming that others were hoarders and that you shouldn't be sharing this information because people are just going to go out and buy it all and just, you know, just gets gross. People
Yeah, I
are
mean,
not sensible anymore.
no, I mean, like, and that's the thing. Like, people are afraid that people are just going to go out there and buy and buy and buy, and then they just hoard it and then somehow resell it. We saw an instance of that a couple weeks ago where the guy in Tennessee bought 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, which he then was then forced to donate or go to prison. I think he still might go to prison because the jackass deserves it. But because he's now being investigated by the state of Tennessee and federal authorities with regards to what he was doing with those bottles, selling them upwards of $70 a unit, which is downright price gouging. But I think letting people know exactly where things are available is more helpful than anything else. But everybody has taken a look at what society has done and basically just announced to everyone saying that, like, I don't believe in the good of anybody anymore. And I think you announcing this will only like conjure up the bad in people. And I think a lot of people have sort of succumbed to that nowadays, and it's sort of sad because
But
of
you
what's
do
going
see
on.
the opposite side of that. I mean, last time I was out, I drove by a person's house who had put out a pallet of Deer Park bottled water. So they were like the 12 packs or 20 something packs. And the pallet was, as tall as I am. And it was all just sitting out there in the front lawn. It's possible that they just hadn't loaded in their house yet and they are hoarding it. But from the looks of it, it was there for people who needed it. Um, so, maybe someone's trying to do a little good too.
Yeah,
You hear about people bringing in their masks to um, the hospitals nearby and things like that, trying to support. So,
yeah, yeah. There was a study recently that said that the what is it, the N95 masks are indeed reusable if you do a certain method. I think it came out of Stanford recently, where you have to stick it in an oven at a specific temperature to be able to be reused for a certain amount of time. Uh, it's not 100% effective in the sense that it'll drop, but the effectiveness of the mask will still be as high enough that it will help people. So they're trying to figure out
well,
ways to sort of get them to reuse them, but I don't know how
yeah.
effective it is. But it just came out recently, so
Well,
yeah.
at this point, they have to choose between no mask at all or reusing, and
Hmm.
of course, you're going to reuse it. But um, the cheaper masks, you probably can't do too much that way.
No, no, you can't. It's probably only
You will
for
adapt.
the specific mass. But let's talk about like what humanity is up to in the meantime. There's some ridiculousness out there that has been happening, especially since the stock market has crashed pretty much. Last I saw, it was under 19,000, and then was like going back and forth between 19,000 and 20,000. The lieutenant governor, a very staunch Trump supporter by the name of Dan Patrick, has said that grandparents, lots of them, specifically people that quote he's talked to, are willing to die to save the economy for their grandchildren. I don't understand the logic of it all, but it's not just him. But great old Glenn Beck came out and said that it is absolutely necessary for people to basically go back to work in order to prevent the economy to be basically affected forever for these kids, so that you have to be willing to sacrifice something that also Trump has said. So I pose this question to you: would you sacrifice grandma so that the economy can get back on track? Like this idiot has basically said. I know your answer, but I don't understand how people come to these conclusions.
I would sacrifice anyone who is more concerned with the economy than their family members. Yes, I would put them right there in the front and let them do the work and put themselves at risk. They're looking for people. It's like people that are like, oh, we need to go to war. They're not talking about going to war themselves. They're talking about sending other people to war, and that's what this guy's doing. He's not going to put himself at risk. So if these people, the people that will benefit the most from it, want to put themselves out there and do these things, more power to them. Show us the way.
Yeah, yeah. It's usually these people who are very loud and very opinionated, who are very unwilling to they themselves sacrifice anything. They want you to do all the sacrificing, and then them doing all the benefiting. And in this particular case, Governor Patrick believes that by doing this, he feels that the lives of our grandchildren are going to be saved. When in fact he would in no way be affected by this in any way. He's just making other people succumb to this nonsense that he's putting out there. I mean, the president has even put things out there saying that the economy is necessary and we need to get back started by Easter. And I don't even know when Easter is this year. I think that's probably
12th, maybe.
yeah. Let's find out here. Easter 2020 is the 12th. That is correct, Sunday the 12th. So he wants to get back to work in 2 weeks, whereas the Surgeon General and Dr. Fauci has said this is getting worse, not getting better, especially in the short term. So I don't understand how these people are so delusional with regards to it. I guess they're seeing their bank accounts shrink and shrink, and that's worrying them a lot. And
Yeah,
it's
there are going to be ramifications, financial ramifications for this whole thing,
hmm
and we are going to see the effects of this far into the future. But here's the thing, right? If you spread the virus to half of the country or more because everyone goes back to school and everyone goes back to work, and the hospitals are overrun and people are dying because they don't have enough ventilators, and the people that take care of them are dying because they don't have enough masks, things will become so chaotic that the economy will further slip.
hmm
So it is not the answer. Of course, a great economy for a completely chaotic system and people that are, fearing for their lives, that's not going to work. So I get the idea that like they say, oh, we need the economy to come back because most of our infrastructure in this country is going to be based around huge companies that rely on things going as normal, right? That the airline industry is not going to make it very long
Yeah.
if they can't fly,
hmm
and it's hard to imagine coming back from that. But on the other side, you need people to be alive for there to be a good economy. So got
Well,
to
I
start with
have
that.
I have no sympathies for the airline industry. These are a group of people who have wasted all of their bailout money when they originally had issues back in 2001 when nobody wanted to fly, and then again in 2008 when they were then consolidating like crazy, have robbed people of baggage fees and all sorts of other crazy fees, and then treat them like garbage, and now expect the populace to save them from bankruptcy when they've spent all of their extra money in stock buybacks. So, personal opinion, the airline industry can go f itself.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
a big piece, it's a piece of a larger puzzle, right?
Oh, I
You could
know.
say the
Yeah.
same thing about the banks, the
Yeah.
way that they've abused their bailout money, or the automotive industry.
Yeah.
And you add all that up and you say screw them all, well then suddenly we don't have these major industries and the USA tumbles into what, you know?
No, that's
So
exactly right. That
we cannot afford to not bail them out because we need them. But there have to be limitations and structures on these things because there's no way they should be doing stock buybacks and they should be feeding their CEOs huge amounts of money for what for getting a bailout. You know, was it Boeing? Was it Boeing that just gave their guy a 20% increase?
Yep, Boeing just paid
Yeah,
their head
Boeing.
guy, yeah,
After all
37.
of their nonsense and bullshit,
Yeah, just look at what they
it's
did with
just
the
absurd.
737 Max program. That program might end up bankrupting that company in the long run if they can't. That thing's not ever going to come back. They have this hope that the 737 Max is going to then come back, and then all the airlines are going to start using it again. Well, right now it is an example of greed. There's a great video on what the 737 Max actually is, and it's done by Half is Interesting, the guy that does that particular channel and Wendover Productions. I guarantee you should check that out because that guy is really good at explaining the ramifications of what Boeing did and why it's such a big deal and why if it doesn't ever fly, Boeing is really on the shitter when it comes to that stuff. Um, but let's take a look at some other absurd things that have happened in the lead up to coronavirus. There has been a lot of nonsense essentially been spread on the internet by lots of interesting people. I'm just going to show you some examples. This is from Interesting Engineering. This article, 11 absurd things that have happened because of the coronavirus. Uh, you've got Iranian clerics saying that applying essential oils to your anus will cure coronavirus. There was a brothel in Spain, supposedly, that was a hotbed for corona. The Spanish have been going through their own misery because of all of the dense populations in Madrid and Barcelona and the way that their cities are set up. There was people who have been ordered for self quarantine, still going out to parties. Most recently, I think in South Africa, where then now he's being charged with attempted murder by breaking isolation and being a selfish dick, and so forth and so forth and so forth. If you want to go to this, you can go visit interestingengineering.com for all of this stuff. One of the more unusual ones is using cow poop as a cure for coronavirus. But besides all of this, I mean, there have just been a lot of absurdities that have just sort of come out during this, and I think even us, just living our normal lives, have experienced a lot of this sort of just things that you would consider absurd, but are now a little bit in the new normal. Have you experienced anything just a little weird? I mean, you mentioned that story of the pallet of water in just in front of the person's house. But I mean, have you seen any other weird things? Because I've got an interesting one that was out of New York that I thought my friend thought was hilarious, but at the same time, it's like 3 weeks ago we would have laughed, but now it's actually sort of cool.
Well, I would say that I've seen some strange behavior, but it all kind of lines up with, uh, you know, people being afraid of being near each other.
Hmm.
So people wearing outfits that are supposed to protect themselves, which look a little funny, but are, it's them doing what they can with what they have.
Yep.
Um, I don't think anything saw anything really strange, but a little tidbit from our locality. Uh, Murphy's Irish Pub in Old Town had a person who was positive for coronavirus, who was in there 3 days in a row. And a personal friend of ours, someone that you've traveled with in the past,
Hmm.
was there during that time.
Oh
And
man.
she has been on um, homestay quarantine for about 10 days, she says. But
Hmm.
she has been out, but she says she's been careful. But I mean, like, that's,
Oh,
that's the closest I have to knowing someone who's kind of connected to any of this personally.
well, yeah. I mean, it's sort of crazy. Like the story that I got was from yesterday. My friend who lives up in New York ordered Chinese food, and unbeknownst to him, inside his Chinese food delivery was his food, his rice, a note, and a roll of toilet paper, like fresh, wrapped in like a little thing, saying, "Here's your Chinese food. Also, as a gift from us, is a roll of toilet paper, which apparently sold out everywhere in New York, which you can't find." Uh, you would laugh because you would think, "Oh my God, this food is going to just make sure my bowels erupt." But in this new normal, it's actually a bit of a motivation going, oh, if I order, I'm going to get a roll for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah.
They're actually doing that at a couple places. There's another place in Old Town, an Italian place that was giving out uh, rolls of toilet paper with their orders.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I thought was in a normal world you would think that would be hilarious and it's a joke on their own food, but in today's world it is the new normal. So I just thought that was funny and it was interesting and it's a great marketing ploy if you have enough of it that you can actually include with orders, and I would think it would motivate some people who don't have any. So, because you have to catch the grocery stores at the right time. I was talking to the person at Harris Teeter today, and she was saying that they got a delivery in on Saturday, and within 45 minutes, all paper products were gone. So,
Oh man, that's
and
like
they were
I wish I
limited
had
to
it
two
here.
per person, and they were all gone in
I
45
wish I
minutes.
had this one to share. I came across it on Reddit. It must have been 4 or 5 days ago, but someone had a video of them like wheeling out a pallet of toilet paper and all the people surrounding it and ripping off the stuff and taking away, you know, 48 at a time. So, but someone edited the sound and made it the sound of like monsters eating flesh, like and scrounging, like rah, 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 like that. And it looked really funny overlaid with these people and their behavior. Um,
But yeah, that's
Actually,
pretty
it did
nuts.
remind me though. I went for pizza the other night
Hmm.
just for picking up and bringing home, and they had closed the store and they had person opening the door, calling a name, putting the pizzas down on a table, closing the door, and then if your name was called, you walk up and you take it. And all these people are respecting their social distancing, you know, their circumference or whatever it is. They're
Yeah,
keeping their
yeah.
distance, right? But it was really strange because there must have been 12 to 14 people there to pick up their stuff, and they were all arranged in a what looked like overhead would look like a grid. They're all equidistant from each other, and it just looked like this big array of humans that were just standing there waiting for the name to call. If someone kind of moved forward, other people would sort of part and move aside, and everyone's very very conscious of their space right now.
My God. I mean, in a way, it's like are if you are the type of person who doesn't like to be close to anybody, this is your time when it comes to those things. It's sort of crazy. Um, and speaking of social distancing, that's a great lead in to our next thing. You had emailed this to me, and I thought it was a perfect time to actually talk about it. And this is the interactive social distancing scoreboard that is put out by Unicast that grades social distancing uh, by state and how each state is basically doing with regards to reported cases and all sorts of other interesting things. So you can it's like an interactive map that you can click on and you can get a score based on how your locality is doing. So, for example, I'm just going to click on the state of Virginia here, assuming that it doesn't lock up. But you had showed me this, and this is a very interesting site, and it's a very interactive scoreboard. It's very well done, but it's definitely for a person who loves like weird information and how based of distance traveled, what you can sort of do, all this sort of stuff. Um, it's very interesting. And what have you found using this thing?
I found that nobody respects privacy anymore, and that none of us signed up for being on this thing. None of us signed up for being monitored based on our cell phone signals and shit like that. But they're collecting it anyways, so they can do some pretty cool stuff with it, of course, as you can see here. But it also makes you wonder, like, yes, it's anonymous, but at the same time, they're still tracking your movements.
Yeah.
So it's kind of messed up. But I will say I am happy with my little neighborhood here. We are in the top 5 best counties in the state, and have an A rating.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard to get us. You got to hover over the Fairfax area and then specifically over our little dots and within that. But um, it's also interesting to see how people move inside the state and which areas are more um, following the rules and which ones are not. And it kind of what you see as a population dense areas are actually doing.
Yeah, they're doing like work in those dense areas. Well, you see, like in the urban areas, though, you get a really great score. But when you go into the more rural areas, is when you have a little bit of an issue with regards to some of this stuff. So you're seeing some of the rural areas actually suffering in the score category. So it's very interesting to see. So in the meantime, it uh, looks like Tim has DC'd here in the middle of the show. So I'll just play around with this here for a little bit. But it's just one of those things in which, yeah, it's taking your cell phone signal and tracking on an average of how many people in your area are walking or going places and doing things, and um, what is the average of travel for certain people. And you see, based in Fairfax, Virginia, for example, since the lockdown, which was I think a week ago or 10 days ago, so probably around the middle of March, you've seen just a decrease in movement and mobility for people that live in Fairfax, Virginia, for example, by as much as 20%. For people, and there are weird things happening because of the fact that people are not actually moving. So, for example, there was a great story about dolphins coming back uh, to the coast of Italy.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. So, like, there was a great article that said that dolphins are coming back to the waterways in Italy because cruise ships are no longer busying up the waterways and polluting into the water, and you see the dolphins come back, which is something of an unusual sight for the folks in Italy. You see an article stating that because of certain air pollution reductions, because of no planes, no bus, very few buses, fewer buses and cars, certain countries have hit their sort of 2025 target goal because of the reduction of people off the roads and stuff like that with regards to uh, pollution and what they were contributing to the sort of carbon footprint of a particular country. There are a lot of environmental impacts with regards to it just because people are just not going anywhere. And it's very interesting just to see the side effects of all of this stuff of people being sort of trapped in their houses.
Yeah, Mother Nature has taken it back, and I think it's beautiful. There are some negative effects, I guess.
Yeah.
For example, uh, in was it Thailand? I think it's Thailand. Uh, uh, Hundreds of monkeys came down into a city because they were all the tourists had been there and feeding them all this time, and the tourists stopped coming, and so these ravenous monkeys came in looking for that food. And the same thing happened in Japan with deer. came down from the forest looking for food because the tourists had gone.
Oh yeah, the deer in
Um,
Nara are dependent on
yeah,
humans for food, and
yeah.
there are no people there.
And also in Colorado, I saw a picture this morning of 3 mountain lions walking through someone's front lawn in their neighborhood
Yep.
because no one's out. Let's go check things out. What's going on here? But yeah, I heard about the Venice thing. The dolphins and swans are going back there. Beautiful blue skies.
Hmm.
It's looking like it should have without us messing everything up.
It's an interesting argument because like environmentalists who are out there are probably there. There's going to be somebody that does a study with regards to all of this, and like people who don't believe that humanity is causing the world to warm up and change. I am not a particular person who is anti-environmental. I believe that human caused climate change is one of the reasons that we've had more hurricanes and the weather has been weird, and I contribute that to pollution, all sorts of other things. So I'm not a climate change denier, but at the same time, when you take humanity out of the equation because of something like this, where people are now trapped in their homes and are not polluting via their cars or going out there and doing things like that, and you see sort of Mother Nature come back. I mean, is there any more argument with regards to it? I mean, you're seeing some of the negative stuff like the monkeys and the deer, but you're also seeing life sort of return to places that haven't been there in a long, long time because of humanity's impact. So, you take the good with the bad, but at the same time, it's very interesting to see how, like, if humans were to just sort of cut themselves out of a certain type of environment, what happens in that particular location.
Yeah, we are unable to deny it when we're given this kind of proof. How quickly things will become natural, beautiful, clean again if we just stop. And I'm not a hippie. I'm not trying to say, oh, we need to go back to living in tents and living off the land. But uh, you know, polluting our sky, our water, driving animals further and further away until they have no place to live. It's all too much for what? So that a very small percentage of the population can be obscenely rich. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's not my bag.
Well, I mean, well, and that's the thing, right? Like, there is this imbalance in society that exists now that is unfortunately not easily fixable. So you got to live with that. And with that, I'm going to transition to some Reddit questions here. That we've been talking about COVID the entire time here in the very beginning, and somebody had actually posted something that is interesting that I thought I would start basically a change in topics. But this particular topic is from Relationship Advice, and it is talking about, would you allow adult stepchildren to come over after being on spring break and possibly exposed to COVID 19? If I didn't see any of the texts, I would say hell no. If you're over 50 and they went to the beach during this time, I'd say those kids probably need to freaking self-isolate themselves. But I haven't read any of the comments, so I'm gonna read what Wow Wow Coco uh, actually posted here, and I want your opinion, Tim, too. My partner has adult children, 25, 22, and 19. All of them went on to spring break to different locations, and two are coughing with no fever. My partner had his son and his girlfriend in our small 1,000 square foot home for 2 days now. She was in Florida partying just 5 days ago. Then his adult daughter, who lives with her mother, is trying to be a nurse, so she has not been only on spring break but in hospitals as well. She showed up to stay in our spare bedroom and to study. She was eating out of our bag of chips, etc. Today I left to hike and told me he was having all of them over for a big lunch. He said that I'm insane for having fears that they have infection. We live in a location with a stay-at-home lockdown. I know these are trying times, but I'll admit that having three adult children, boyfriend and girlfriends, and myself and my partner in a 1,000 square foot home is not easy. I'm about to lose it. Would like to know your thoughts on what is reasonable during this time. Thanks. It's a small home. I get that. But these kids, if you're older, should be nowhere near uh, these adults, these older adults for sure. Assuming that they may have had kids in their 20s or possibly their 30s, the partner did. So he's probably could be in his mid 50s and 60s-year old, and he's in the target zone. If he gets sick, uh, he's going to be in bad shape. And I don't know how old she is, but I wouldn't let any of these people anywhere near my home. But unfortunately, they've already contaminated the location. What do you think?
I wouldn't let any of these people near my home just for the sole fact that they went on spring break during all this. If you're a fucking idiot, you need to pay the consequences for that. And, you'd show up to my house with a closed door and I put a note up on it saying, you made your choice, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear those guys didn't live with them before, so now they're just showing up and bringing their boyfriend and girlfriends. It's not only just rude, it's rude in without the virus going around. It's a rude thing to do, especially with 1,000 square feet. That's a small house. On top of it, you got a bunch of idiots that think that's a great idea to go, where all the masses are going when there is a pandemic going on, so that you don't miss out on spring break, bro.
Yeah. Some of the selfishness here is just unbelievable. And I really don't understand the logic of these people who went on the beach. Like, we saw the interviews of these people. It's like, I was planning this trip for 2 months. COVID's not going to stop me from partying down here in the beaches. And it's like, dude, you are a moron. I don't understand where you get off thinking that way. I mean, people get vacations canceled all the time just because what? And you're 19 to 25, and because you're going to miss one spring break, it's the end of the world. People are morons. And I feel bad for Wow Wow Coco because there's nothing she can do at this point because these people are already in her home, and she said that one of them is already, two of them were coughing already, but with no fever, and it's like, what? No, no, it's too late. At this point, she should just kick them out of the house and self isolate because it's going to happen, where, if she isn't careful enough, she's going to get sick, and there's nothing that can stop that at this point because I don't know how many people all these three adult children, 19, 22, and 25, were exposed to. It's crazy.
Right. This is one of the flaws of youth. I'm not trying to shit on young people. There are plenty of smart ones out there doing the right thing. But in your youth, oftentimes you think you are untouchable and that stuff doesn't apply to you. Or, it's not going to happen to me. I'm good. I can handle my alcohol. I can, I'm healthy. I'm really healthy, so it's not going to bother me. And prioritize things that are really, really silly in comparison to the gravity of the situation. So these guys are making that mistake. I don't know if you look down to the other comments and stuff, but there's a little more detail to this. It's not her home. It's actually her husband's home. He is not a really nice guy and told her that she can leave if she has a problem with this, but that she can't come back. She also mentioned that he's an avid Trump supporter. I don't really know what that has to do with anything, but basically that he has a grandfather, and his grandfather was a doctor, and that guy said, this is being overblown. It's not anything to worry about. So, I feel like too much Kool-Aid has been drank by this family, and this lady's in the minority here.
It's just crazy, right? I mean,
it's a tough time for her.
Well, it's a tough time for her, but she's being punished for other people's idiocy, which is the part that is infuriating. I mean, people can think all they want to themselves, but when it comes to affecting other people, that is just outrageous. you always have to play it safe when there's another person involved. Yet the selfishness of some people are just crazy to me. And in this particular case, the craziness here is in the husband and his kids, who just don't believe anything is going to break them down. And it's people like this that end up spreading and being the typhoid Marys of this particular disease. The kids might not suffer anything too outstanding, but anybody who's 60 plus, there's a great Kyrgyzstan video about how this virus goes about infecting your body and what it actually does. And the fact that COVID-19 isn't necessarily what kills you, it's the fact that it taxes your immune system to the point where it can't defend from other things. And that is what ends up killing you. So the reason that it affects older people disproportionately is because of weakened immune systems in older people. As they get older, immune systems get weaker, and therefore they're just not able to handle the deluge of bacteria that ends up coming after your immune system breaks down. And that's what ends up killing you. So in a way, it's an older person virus, but there was my mom's friend's son, who is in the Navy, came down with it, and he's on a respirator right now in Hawaii because he has COVID.
How old is
he? He is 26.
26 years old on a respirator. Let that sink in, people. This is not just an old person's disease, an old person's problem. Anyone can get messed up over this.
Yeah.
And should take it seriously.
Yeah, and the problem is that he was on a ship, and now, like, he could have infected a whole bunch of other people, but he wasn't. He probably got it from a passenger or somebody else that was passing through on his ship. So, I mean, my mom is giving me updates every day because she's just hearing stuff because my mom's friend is freaking the hell out because she can't go to him. He's based in Hawaii and all sorts of other stuff. So, I mean, it hits everyone. So I'm not exactly sure what these people are thinking, but there's just a subculture of people who don't take this stuff seriously. So, yeah. So I don't know. That's the thing, right? Like, it's people are still having issues with family members and people not taking this seriously. You would think we're almost in week 3 of a mandatory quarantine, and people are still thinking it's like, oh, this is fine, it's just like the flu, and that is unbelievably stupid of them to think so. So, but maybe natural selection happens this way. I don't know.
It will happen. It doesn't have to happen. And it's not going to be that the people that were the smartest will necessarily survive. If anything, if for nothing else, just the people that are putting themselves at risk to take care of these fucking idiots that are out there running around spreading it. And I'm not saying everyone that got it is an idiot. I'm saying that there are people that are making it worse. And the people that suffer from that are not just the people that are affected by it, but the people that are, delivering your mail and checking you out at the grocery store, and, the nurses, the doctors, all of them, like that, they have all had to deal with the common people not paying attention to the guidelines and the rules of doctors and being told it's fine, it's a hoax, it'll get better quickly, get ready to go to church with all of the masses on Easter, that kind of crap. You know what I'm talking about.
And I don't mean to talk about it, another negative thing with regards to it, but what she's going through. There was an article here in the Charlotte Sun Port, which is a newspaper in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're trying to see whether or not there is a rise in domestic violence due to COVID-19 quarantining. And this is just a horrific thought that people are getting abused at a time when you're supposed to be at home, but because you are at home, people don't know how to act uh, with each other, or they become different people, or uh, you know, emotions run high because of what's going on, and
Or it's
it's
a regular situation where someone is abusive and they're just stuck in the home with them.
hmm
Like, it doesn't have to be anything different than normal. These could just be really shitty situations, and where normally the wife or the kids or something like that would try to stay out of the house as much as possible to avoid it, and now they're all stuck there together.
yeah. Yeah. So, we had joked about how pregnancies were going to be on the rise in about 9 months or so because people are at home and there's really nothing else to do, especially for couples and stuff. But this is just it's a very nasty side effect also of what other things that happen when people are just stuck in their homes and can't go anywhere and do anything. So it's very, very disconcerting, let's say.
Well,
But
last week we talked about the rise in divorces in China
oh yeah,
due to being stuck together. You probably see the same thing everywhere. You know,
yeah,
people that can't handle overlapping so much with the other people in their lives
yeah,
want
and
to get out
the
of it.
thing about it is we're all humans. It doesn't matter where we're from. Humanity is this. People are people. That's something I learned from the Muppets Take Manhattan, the diner owner, and they said, peoples is peoples. There's no changing them. So like it doesn't matter where you're from, what you are. People will react very similarly in certain situations. Uh, it'll span the gamut, but it'll be very similar how people react. You said the divorces in China, uh, probably the baby boom that'll happen in 9 months or so, things like that. But just hopeful that people just make it through out of all this stuff, and then realize maybe if they are cooped up with somebody that they realize is not the proper person to be cooped up with, they that this quarantining will give them the the epiphany that they need to say, I'm not in a proper situation right now. Maybe I should move on, and
That
hopefully,
is the perfect lead-in
uh-huh.
to uh, another Reddit thing I saw, which has since been removed. But basically, it was a woman who said, I have come to the realization that I don't want to be with the person I'm with. And we are quarantined together for who knows how long into the future.
hmm
I don't know if I should tell him now that that's how I'm feeling, or if I should wait until the end of this to tell him. And she was looking for advice on how to handle all of that. But she was basically like, I'm really, really unhappy that I have to cohabitate with this person who, I guess from all this time together, she's realized a number of things about him. One of which is that she doesn't really like who he who he is as a person and how he treats other people and stuff. So, uh, what advice would you give this lady?
This is a hard spot because if you do say something, one of you have to go. That is probably going to be the tough spot. Like you're in a situation now where it's not like you can just pick up and move to an apartment or find another place to stay. There's not a lot of places that you can go. And assuming that you don't want to like sort of go to family members, especially if you are younger, you don't want to expose older people to what you do if you are even younger and you do have to work and go out possibly exposing older people is not something to do. This is one of those things in which it sort of sucks, and the normally I would say that the correct answer would be to say, hey, look, this is not working out. I really don't like cohabitating with you, and I think I'm going to have to leave. The problem is that there's not going to be a lot of places to go. And if you're in a hot zone, by going somewhere, you could actually be risking yourself with regards to infecting yourself or others with the virus. And personally, I would wait just so that I could find a safer situation in the long run, so that when it calms down, I can actually say, all right, this is it. We're going to have to go. But I would change a little bit where I would start separating myself slowly, Domestically inside the house, maybe if there is an extra bedroom, spend a little bit more time in the extra bedroom, in the spare bedroom. Maybe try to possibly separate yourself personally, so that it would make it a little easier at the end, and figure out, like, is it her apartment or is it his apartment? And maybe he's got to be the one that goes, and it's like, I don't know. But, in this trying time, I don't know what the actual proper advice is, because it leads down a path into basically terrible directions in which somebody's going to have to take an action, and and it might be going into a situation that might not be healthy for either of them. So, and I know that's sort of like a cop out, but at the same time, when you're faced with the situation of, like, I really don't want to cohabitate with you, but there's a man killing virus out there that could infect a lot of people. I, the proper actions that everybody has said is just to stay where you are until it dies down. I don't know how long that could be, unfortunately.
Yep. You gotta play on the safe side.
Yeah.
But and you can start looking for another apartment in the meantime, at least online, and start kind of like putting your feelers out to see if there's a way that you can jump right into it once things clear a little bit. But yeah, I mean, as it is now, it's not great, and you might have to, like, pretend a little bit, and you don't have to keep sleeping with the person, but, like, you might still talk to them and at least be civil. But if you try to break up and have to stay together, that's just gonna suck. It's just gonna be gonna be unbearable. Yeah. So no, I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah, and the thing about it is like, there are subtle ways of basically isolating yourself from the other person. You could blame it on their snoring. It's like, you know what? I've put up with your snoring for so long. I'm going to go sleep in the other room because I haven't been able to get a good night's sleep in a couple days. And then and if they do snore, and use that as an excuse to separate yourself from the bedroom, and slowly start moving little things out of there, and separating yourself a little bit at a time. And if it starts arguments and discussions, then you sort of have to play it off for a bit, and you sort of have to realize it's like, maybe it is the closeness, the intimacy, that just too much of it at once, and you just need a little bit of space, and explain that. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult for anybody, especially in this situation. Couples are going through a lot of issues when it comes to dealing with the proximity that people have to be around for so long, that being in a small area and just being on top of each other all the time isn't necessarily healthy. Everybody needs to get away and do other things, and come back to it eventually. But this forced quarantine is very difficult for a lot of people. So.
Yeah. Here's some not real advice. You could also be incredibly annoying and force them to go crazy, to the point that they want to leave and risk themselves. And that way you'd still have your place.
Isn't that, there's a subreddit for people who, isn't that like the bad idea bear, basically?
Probably.
It was like the angry wolf meme. Basically make them leave based on bad behavior that you induce yourself. So that could be a method if you knew people would do that, but I don't know if anybody would risk it doing it that way. Hell, you might end up having them do the same thing to you. They might start separating from you because they don't want to break up with you after your bad behavior, but they themselves don't want to move out either because of what's going on in the world. So who knows? But that one's a tough one. It's like, do you expose yourself and break up, or do you stay and power through it, and hopefully things get better, and therefore then you can leave? Either way, she's 1 foot out the door. So
yeah, good luck.
Oh, I know. Well, I wanted to end it. I wanted to end this show on a good note, and I wanted to show something that I found this morning, which I thought was very heartfelt. This is from Morristown, New Jersey, and this is a man who had his wife um, admitted for COVID-related symptoms, and she's getting better. But this is a great photo. He's not allowed into the hospital because you know how it is. It's like you don't want to expose yourself and others in the emergency room. So he puts a photo up thanking the nurses and the doctors for saving his wife's life. And this was taken by one of the nurses. And then there's a story that goes along with it because somebody actually posted what was going on here. But this is from the Morristown Hospital in New Jersey. And then the baby sort of posts a little background with regards to what was going on. And he writes, my friend's caption on Facebook in triage the other day, I heard a knock on the window. If that was what I saw, this man knew he couldn't come in but wanted to show some gratitude. And I asked through the window if I could snap a picture, and he nodded. He had tears pouring down his face, and I peeked out the door and asked him how his wife was. He said, great, she's going home today. You all are amazing. I don't know him, I don't know his wife, but throughout the last 13 years as a nurse, I realized this is what we do. This is why we do it. Times are tough, but we make a difference. I love my team. Thank you to all the healthcare workers and environmental first responders and food industry workers for having our backs. This was in New Jersey, and it's just one of those things that, like, I saw this photo, and it just sort of captured what I thought was going on with regards to how important it is that nurses and everybody else are there working ridiculous, like 12-hour shifts, 5 to 6 days a week, making sure that people are being able to survive through all of this. And you can tell by just the look on his face that he has absolute 100% gratitude to all of these people, all the nurses and all the people in the emergency room that helped save his wife. So it was one of those things in which is like I was taken aback because I was like, oh, that's a really nice photo. But
yeah, it's good to see, humanity in dark times.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is, this one was caught on camera, but I'm sure this has happened many times over all across the country. And we need more of it. Appreciate what you have, people.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one thing, like just a personal anecdote. There were nurses who took care of my dad when he was in hospice care a long time ago, when back in '06, and they had taken really good care of him. And I wanted to show appreciation for the nurses, so I brought food with them, food for them one day when I was visiting at the hospital, and they had said they appreciated it so much because there's a lot of people who come in for visits and they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out, and a lot of people just don't say thank you to them, and they do their job every day, and it's just one of those things in which just a little thank you sometimes goes a long way, especially for people who've been there on the front lines doing their thing. And I think with 9/11 and a lot of things, first responders have gotten a lot of credit that they've been longing deserved. But in this particular time, the nurses, the doctors, the food service workers, the people that keep hospitals running are like right there on the front lines when it comes to people getting sick, and they're just 100% more at risk than a lot of people are, and they're just trying to power themselves through. There's a lot of great stories from Italy where there was a priest recently who gave up his ventilator to save a younger man who was in his 30s when they didn't have one, and he ended up passing away. But his ventilator saved this other man's life, and people making sacrifices for other people. So just sort of hard to talk about, but it is what it is, and I hope this photo brings a little bit of inspiration and sort of hope to people out there who see that that it is, there is just a bit of humanity out there still available for people, and people are being nice. So
yeah,
but yeah,
come on, people, good job. Keep it going.
Keep it going. But I think that's going to be it for us today. So hopefully we talked about a lot of stuff that that sort of uplifting as well as stupid people out there. But it is what it is, and we'll try to sort of keep going in this time of need. But to try to inform, maybe entertain you as we go forward.
You want to be entertained? Let's set up a camera at my apartment here, and y'all can watch me do my really, really ridiculously lame workouts in my home here. I'm trying so hard to come up with ways to work out. Ever since the gym shut down and all that, it's, just trying to do stuff here in my apartment. And, before I had, exercise bands, resistance stuff, weights, and all that. But since I moved back here, I don't have any of that. So I have a yoga mat, and I'm doing a whole bunch of body weight stuff. But I've even got, I think I got 4 gallons of water, and I've been using my belt and running my belt loop through all 4 of them, so I can use all 4 for certain lifts and stuff. It's got to look ridiculously stupid. So,
well, people will watch anything, especially on YouTube. And we had a question posed to the channel. Ghost is Anonymous. Is it a bad idea to catch corona now so I don't have to worry about it later? It's not a good idea to catch corona ever.
Nope.
For you to think that you could sort of survive the coronavirus just because you're a little younger is not the proper way of thinking, because you have to act as if you're going to infect somebody, and you have to be super careful, and you don't know exactly how the virus is going to actually interact with your own body. Just because there haven't been a lot of deaths for people who are younger doesn't necessarily mean that your body is not going to react to it properly. So for you to think that it's like the chicken pox is not the proper way to think. And I think any health specialist would say that is not a good idea at all. So don't go actively searching for corona. That is a terrible idea. But yes, that would be my personal advice. Also, just a little side note, we've been watching, for anybody who wants a little pick-me-up, today was the last episode of the anime Bofuri. I don't want to get hurt, so I want to max out my defense. If anybody's interested in watching a fun VMMO anime show, you should watch it. Because
hit him with a link to the place that you like to watch it from.
Oh yeah,
it's a great anime. I'm pretty picky about what I watch, but it's got something for everyone. If you like online games, and even if you don't like online games, but you know something about them, it's just interesting to watch someone who comes in, and this girl comes in and plays and has no idea about anything and just sort of like derps her way through it. It's very kind of cute and funny, and then at some point, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and that is actually legal. If you want to go for the legal streams, is on Funimation.com. Today's episode is the final episode, and it's called Defense and Bonds. For those who want to watch it legally, you go to Funimation.com. It's a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody be good. Do things illegally.
But for those who are also into other anime shows, Rurouni Kenshin was added to Funimation just recently, and for Tim and I, it is an anime classic. We watched all 95 episodes when we were in college on terrible VHS tapes that were subbed very sketchily. I'm not actually sure if the animated subtitles were actually correct in some cases, but it was a fantastic.
Poor Hodo here was he lived in the dorm across the way, and he would have to manually lug the stupid VCR across from his dorm to ours, sometimes in the bitter cold of night in the mountains. And he must have weighed like $1.30 back then. So
Oh God, yeah.
this poor kid.
That was like 50 pounds ago. Holy shit.
Yeah, good times though.
Oh yeah. So
We
like
packed in the entire hall. Like everyone on that hall was packed into your room.
Oh yeah, for watching like everything for like wrestling and all sorts of other stuff. We even had movie nights where I had worked at a video store leading up to college. So I used my employee discount and access to get movies that were not released yet onto VHS, and just used my contacts there and got some stuff that was going to be released. But we got like things like we had a movie night and we watched stupid things like Waterworld, which was a terrible Kevin Costner movie. We watched Braveheart on VHS. It's a 3-hour long movie that you actually had to change the VHS cassette tape in the middle of watching the movie so you could watch the other half because it was on 2 VHS tapes. That drew a tremendous amount of people into the area, which I was very proud of, because people were going out for the evening and all stopping to watch the movie before they headed out to the bars, because I thought that was funny. And then we had all sorts of other random showings, the movie night in the dorm room. So yeah, it was those are fun times. But if you wanted to watch a good anime, both Kenshin and Bofuri are available on Funimation.com. So check it out. If you want to watch a fun anime and maybe lighten the mood a little bit for you, because it is very, very important to get a laugh now here and there, because it is proven that laughter and happiness actually make for a better person. It actually will help your immune system somehow. I don't know. Good emotions do. There have been studies for it. So keeping in a good mood, laughing, and doing all that stuff will sort of help you out a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit here and there. So, alrighty.
All right, let's end this thing because I want to watch this episode with you.
Okay, so that's gonna do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Twitchline. We'll be back next week. If there are any upcoming specials or anything like that, we might have a special Monday edition. But expect us here every Wednesday, 10:30 for about an hour or so. We're off to watch some anime. So everyone, have a good night and stay safe. Remember, just follow the rules and wash your hands a lot.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.